Are you tired of thinking about drinking, trying to control it, and ending up in the same loop? Welcome to the Feel Good Alcohol Free podcast, where high achieving women learn how to step out of the stop start cycle and build a life that feels calm, clear, and alcohol free on purpose. I'm your host, Lindsay, accredited sober coach and former high functioning drinker. After more than a decade of drinking every night while keeping up a big career and a life that looked fine from the outside, I rebuilt my identity from the inside out. Now I help women stop negotiating with themselves and trust their own decisions again. This isn't a podcast full of cliches or willpower pep talks. You're getting real conversations, lived experience coaching, and practical tools you can use inside your actual life, not perfect conditions. So take a breath. You're here because you're ready to feel good in your real life. So let's get started. Okay, everybody, I'm so excited for you to be here. And my guest today, Sophia Noelle Graniela, is an EFT practitioner, self-expression and podcast guide, and the host of Her Journey Home. After years of hiding her voice and trying to fit in, sobriety and personal transformation led her to start sharing her story online and launching her podcast. Now she helps women turn their lived experiences into podcasts they don't quit. Through a blend of identity work, emotional safety tools like EFT tapping, and clear podcast structure, Sophia supports women in building confidence in their voice and creating platforms rooted in authenticity, truth, and real connection. Okay, so you're going to be able to find her on Instagram at Sophia Graniela. This is linked in the show notes today. And I have got to say, one of the most beautiful parts of getting sober is reconnecting with yourself. So this is why Sophia is the perfect guest on the podcast today. Once I stopped drinking, I finally had this space and energy to express parts of me that had really been dulled by the alcohol. And this episode is all about identity and finding your voice in many different forms. I'm excited for you to hear my conversation with Sophia, not only because she is so kind, grounded, and supportive, but because I hope it inspires you to lean into your own version of self-expression in sobriety. Okay, so here we go. Let's get to our conversation. Okay, welcome, Sophia. I'm so excited you're here. Tell my audience all about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you. And hello, everyone. I'm Sophia. Let me take you first kind of back to my childhood, and I'll get to where I am today. But I grew up in a family where there was a lot of alcoholism and substance abuse present. And I guess you could say there was a lot of chaos and instability. And from a young age, I was always very creative, and I was an entrepreneur straight out of the womb. I had lots of passion and fire in me. But little by little, in elementary school and middle school, I was bullied a lot. And so I learned that being who I was not safe. And I had a really difficult relationship with my father growing up. We didn't talk for a couple of years. And I had a deep abandonment wound. And I felt like between the bullying and the abandonment wound, it started to trickle into other areas of my life. I started to replay a lot of these patterns in toxic relationships. And I started experimenting with substances and alcohol at 15. And basically, when I first experimented with it, I felt like it was the first time in my life that I could be myself. I was like, oh, I feel free. And that basically started an almost 15-year cycle of drinking, partying, self-abandonment, abusive relationships. And it wasn't until I was 29 years old that I remember looking in the mirror and I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. I was a shell of myself. I was in a ton of debt, and I had just gotten out of a relationship, and I was extremely heartbroken. And I just remember in that moment, there was like this full body knowing of, oh, I can't stay where I am. Like, I have to get myself to a better place. And so even though there was this big fear of the unknown, I knew staying where I was so much scarier than where I was going.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely. And basically, it was in that moment that I was just like, I'm done. I have to get sober. I have to change my life. I don't even know who I am underneath all of this. I had suppressed emotions for 29 years of my life because I was always the too much, too intense, too emotional woman in friendships and relationships. And when I got sober, not only did it change, I mean, it changed so many areas of my life, right? It helped me come back to myself. It helped me build confidence. I found more aligned friendships and relationships. I got healthier. But the most important thing that it did for me was it helped me reclaim my voice. Because for years of my life, I learned to swallow my words and keep the peace and basically be the girl that everyone wanted me to be. And
Mm.
so sobriety led me on this beautiful journey back home to myself. And I started to speak out and I started to share my story and I started my podcast. And so basically, that's been my entire journey to where I am now. And I'm an EFT tapping practitioner and I help women reclaim their voices.
I love this so much. Like there's so much of our identity that alcohol steals because we just are, especially like so many of us start drinking in those teenage years, that like those high school years, and it's to fit in. It starts to kind of fit in is where what I hear from a lot, and that was my experience, but also because like there's something about us that we're ashamed of, or we haven't learned how to be proud of who we are because of the like you were leaning into like the other traumas in our lives. If I feel abandoned, I'm not going to show people who I really am because then they're not going to want to be around me. This just starts so young, and so much of the work that I do with women is around this identity and focusing on this emerging identity that they want to have. It's hard to see sometimes. So I'm very excited for us to get into this topic of identity and self-expression because so many of us are afraid to show up authentically.
Absolutely. And you said it perfectly. Like it starts in childhood, and we learn little by little that being who we are truly meant to be isn't accepted. And it's a core need of ours to be loved and to belong. And so we do anything in our power to feel that sense of belonging. And that's what led me into drinking and partying and abandoning myself.
Yes, yes. It's in the ways that you can say it's because of something that my parents did, and it is, but it's like they don't know that they're doing this to you when they're saying don't eat that or shh, or like they don't realize, or at least I don't think my parents did realize the impact of what those words are. That is conditioning us to be quiet. Don't say what you're feeling. Don't talk back. Like all of those things. And it's amazing how that creates this evolution of how we are. And I think that those of us who finally do wake up to that and are brave enough to say, I'm not tolerating that anymore. Like I want to be who I am is really powerful. So you're a very brave woman.
Thank you for saying that. It really does. It takes courage because you said something important is our parents didn't realize the effect it would have. And also simultaneously the cultural side of it, right? It's like we grow up learning we have to raise our hands and be quiet in school. And we get into trouble when we speak out. And it just becomes this ingrained thing in us of, oh my gosh, we're not safe to express. It's not safe to use our voice and to speak up. And we just end up becoming these quiet versions of ourselves, these watered down versions of ourselves that don't take up too much space.
It's so funny that you say raise your hands in class because there's a very logical side of me that says, well, it makes sense that kids have to raise their hand because what if everybody shouts out loud? Like we want everyone to have their turn. But then at the same time, it's like, don't talk until you raise your hand. It's like, it's very conflicting. Like there's the process side, but then there's I got in trouble because I talked without, asking permission. And so there's that, I don't know, for me, that's a little conflicting.
It makes perfect sense logically. I'm like, okay, yeah, we kind of have to in order to take turns. But then it's like we're getting in trouble for talking and not asking for permission first. And then we grow up thinking we need to ask for permission for many things, not just using our voice, but so many things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I want to start off by hearing a little more about you. Like, Where did you grow up? And what is your current work? You mentioned EFT practitioner. Bring me through the story of the connection to sobriety.
So I'm from upstate New York, but I actually was a nomad for many years of my life. So I traveled a bunch. I lived in California, and then I lived in Miami, and then I was traveling South America and Asia. And I've always been a very free spirit, and travel has been one of my biggest teachers. And what I will say is, when I got sober, everything shifted in my intentionality. So when I was drinking and partying, everything in my life was an escape. It was a numbing mechanism so that I didn't have to actually feel my emotions. And so when I got sober, I started traveling more intentionally. I started to dive into EFT tapping, which allowed me to come back into my body. And it allowed me to process the emotions that I had been running away from for so many years.
Mm.
And because I was grieving an old identity, which you talked a lot about identity, but my entire identity was wrapped up in being the party girl for 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. My thoughts, my emotions, my friendships, my relationships, everything revolved around me being the party girl. And if I felt pain or grief or sadness, I didn't ever allow myself to feel them. I just would go out and drink and everything would go away. But you can't outrun your emotions, they eventually catch up. And so when I got sober, I realized that I really needed to sit with the discomfort. And it was terrifying because I didn't never let myself do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't be alone in my own energy. I couldn't ever be alone. And so it really just started with me sitting in the shit, like allowing myself to just feel what was there. And that's what brought me to EFT tapping. I started doing Brad Yates videos on YouTube and fell in love with tapping.
It's so funny that you say this because I always tell the women in who I work with and even, my audience that you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable or you'll
Yes.
never get to the other side of alcohol. Like you really won't. You have to you have to sit in the
Nope.
shit.
Literally. I was like, I don't know if we're allowed to curse on here, but that's the only way I can put it. I'm like, you got to just sit in it. And you can't make it mean anything about you because again, it's all temporary, right? You will get through it, but the only way to get there is to go through. You can't go around it.
It's so true. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and that's the hardest part. So what are some of the things that you like to do in your life outside of your work now then?
Oh my gosh. The world is my oyster at this point. I feel like sobriety unlocks so many things. And one of those being like your hobbies and the things that light your soul on fire and the things that bring you so much joy. And for me, number one is my adventure, my travel. I love traveling. I'm taking a little hiatus right now because 2025 was a lot. I was kind of bouncing around South America and I needed to create a solid foundation. So I came back to where I was born and raised. The other thing is I love an adrenaline rush. So I love skydiving, paragliding, like doing really, I don't know, fun and bold activities. And they also help you build really unshakable confidence, like a really good level of that. So that has helped me so much in my journey.
Mm.
And little things that I love to do. I love cooking. I love reading. I love going on my walks outside when it's not freezing cold out, preferably. I'm a big strength training girl, so I love going to the gym. And then, of course, meditations, my EFT tappings. Like, I love just setting aside that time for myself to really drown out the noise and hear my own voice and connect deeper because my gosh, most of my life I lived on autopilot disconnected. And having that newfound connection is life changing.
This is a very important part of the discussion because the women who I work with and who want to quit drinking, there's this, I call it like their emerging identity, and they don't know what she looks like.
Mm-hmm.
They're so far removed from themselves because of the autopilot and the habitual drinking. And they only know the version of themselves who drinks, the one who always shows up with the rosé, the one more round girl. That's what I always called myself. And the version of them who, when they're with their friends, they're drinking. And so now we have to train our loved ones and our friends on our new identity. And that can feel really hard when we also are not comfortable with that yet either. There's like this awkward time frame where you haven't fully let go of the version of you who drinks, but you don't really know what the version of you who doesn't drink
Yeah.
does or looks like, or how she feels, how she shows up around alcohol. And so it's just this like time frame that's really awkward, like teenage years again. And so what you're saying about hobbies is so incredibly important, because a lot of the women that I work with are like, I don't really know what I like to do.
Isn't that wild? Like, that was me. I felt like a baby giraffe with no legs. I'm like, I was learning how to walk again. I had no idea who I was, what I liked, what I was interested in. All I knew was how to find the parties, how to drink, how to order, and how to immerse myself in that culture. Like, I didn't know anything outside of that. So it's really like this entire self-discovery process of relearning who you really are.
It's so true. And I think you mentioned earlier, there's ambiguity around it. There's that, like, you just don't know what's going to come up when you're sitting through it all. And there's also this conversation that happens around like, I'm going to be so boring. Is going on walks every day and climbing into bed early and reading boring? And I'm thinking to myself, well, my life before that was sitting on my couch watching Lifetime movies and drinking like 2 or 3 bottles of wine for like 6 or 8 hours. So also boring.
Exactly. I was just going to say, I'm so glad you said that because I made this entire reframe and it really helped me in the early days of my sobriety. But I always worried about, oh, people are going to think I'm boring. That's going to be like the new thing. And sometimes I would even say that to people like, oh, I'm just boring now. Like, I don't drink, until I finally realized like, no, like sobriety is an absolute superpower. And I'm doing this to change my life. And I should be proud of this. And I started reframing it. And I'm like, you know what? I used to wake up hungover. I couldn't even make it to brunch. I couldn't get out of bed. I would lay there all day, just a blob and a shell of myself. I'm like, that's boring. Boring is not taking care of your health, going to the gym, going on walks, nourishing your mind, body, and soul. Like, what's boring about that? You
Yeah.
can redefine what that means for you. Like, my fun used to be going out and getting blacked out and doing all those things. Now my fun is like I get to wake up early and enjoy my cup of coffee or my matcha. I get to go on a beautiful hike. I get to connect with people on a deeper level. Like, that for me is so much more fun.
Agree. Because the version of me who used to black out was probably saying something pretty mean to my friends or my husband, like always. Like,
Yes.
oh my God, what did I say? Why is my husband so mad at me today?
And the anxiety the next day of like, oh, did I say something? Did I upset someone? And then like racking your brain trying to figure it out.
Forget about boring. That's just not a way that we want to be living anymore. And
Mm-mm.
yeah, the things that we worry about are non-issues.
Exactly. And like the pros and the cons, like what you're going to get from choosing sobriety will outweigh the cons times a million, because your life will open up in ways that you never even imagined before. And everything in your life will change, like everything.
Exactly, in the best way possible. I have not ever once met somebody who is like, God, I wish I got drunk every Friday night again.
Absolutely not.
Or every Tuesday night. Like, I really miss the days when I used to drink 2 bottles of wine on Tuesdays. Like, no, I don't. I definitely
Oh,
don't.
no, just thinking about it makes me like, oh gosh, like I send so much love to that version of myself, but I do not miss it at all.
Exactly. Exactly. I have a lot of compassion for her. And also, like, she was amazing. She got me where I am today. But,
Ugh,
like, I'm glad that she's resting.
yes, absolutely. And like actually getting the 8 hours of sleep and actually doing the things that make her feel amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we can be really proud of ourselves. There's only
Yeah.
two people that we need to make proud, and that's like the 5-year-old version of us and the 85-year-old version of us.
So true. I just made a TikTok about that yesterday. Like, those are the only two people that you have to make proud. Yes. I always say that. It's
Oh,
so important. Like, I used to try to prove myself to everyone and their grandmother. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm not living my life for them. I'm living my life for me, the little me and the 90-year-old me. I always say that. So
Oh my
good.
gosh. So I love that you just said that because I literally have a post-it, which the only people who will see this is on YouTube, but I have a post-it that I put on my desk here that says, "Am I trying to prove myself?"
Yeah.
Like, so when I'm, doing something and I need to kind of ground myself and be like, what am I really doing here? Am I just trying to prove myself? And it's helpful.
So helpful. It's such a good little reminder throughout the day of like, wait a minute, am I doing this because I genuinely want to do this? Or am I doing this because I'm looking for some kind of validation?
Bingo. Yes, exactly. Oh, it's so good. I'm wondering if
Mhm.
you're a manifesting generator. That's a whole
Sure
other
am.
topic.
You couldn't tell.
Me too.
Manny Gen 3.5.
Oh my God, we are the same person, actually. This
Yep.
is so great.
You can always feel the energy, can't you? It's like you can just tell. Like we have this like I don't know, this aura, this life force energy that's just like this magnetism and you can just tell it's Manny Gen all the way.
It's it's so funny. Next, you're gonna tell me you're a Capricorn.
Virgo actually, but
Oh,
I
okay.
think I do have Capricorn in my charts.
Okay, okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So I love to always ask my guests, what is something that you're doing in your life right now that makes you feel good AF? And you kind of started to allude to it before talking about joy.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I have a couple of things. The first thing I want to talk about is finally leaning into what lights me up and my natural gifts. For so many years of my life, even last year, I was following what everyone told me I should do. And I think a lot of us fall into this trap of, oh, I should be doing this because this is what my family told me is right, or this is what my friends are doing, or this is what society tells you is successful. And I finally got to a place where I'm like, you know what? None of this feels good in my body. I'm burning it all to the ground and I am following what lights my soul on fire. And one of those things is podcasting. And so I'm leaning into my own podcast and I'm now helping other women launch their own podcasts and reclaim their voice and share their voice with the world because we need more women in their power, especially with everything that's going on. Like we need more of you. So that's the one thing. And that is just like, oh, it's so exciting. And the second thing is just really nourishing myself. This is actually a season for me where I've learned to slow down. I am not that person. I have lots of energy. I'm an extrovert. I'm a Manny Gen, like we just said. And I just get like all these creative ideas. And I'm like, I just want to do everything now. But what I'm learning is, okay, maybe I just need to focus on like the one thing and let it grow and then build onto that and continue on that journey. Because the old me has my hand in 100 baskets, but I'm not like really pouring my heart and my soul into them. So, yeah, that's
I
where I'm
mean,
at right now.
I cannot relate at all. I'm kidding. I can absolutely relate. It's like there's all of the ideas happening and then being, this deep disappointment when you realize you can't do them all and you need to prioritize, you need to pick.
Yes. And because how we're wired, it's like we get energy from new ideas and being creative. So there's actually really nothing wrong with like I live my life through trial and error. So it's like I've gotten different certifications, I've tried different things, I've traveled new places. And I don't regret any of it because it's helped me build confidence. It's brought me back to myself. It's helped me connect with what I'm truly meant to do on this planet. But there also is something to say about like your time and your precious energy. And if you're draining your energy in too many places, you don't have that creative force for the things that you really want to pour into. So that's what I'm noticing.
That what you're saying is really important because, for example, in 2019, I took my 200-hour yoga teacher training. Do I teach yoga? No. But
Mhm.
I could be looking at myself sometimes saying like, gosh, what a failure I am. I never did anything with that. But I don't because I learned so much and I met amazing people. And I mean, I may want to teach yoga at some point, and occasionally I substitute teach, and I did teach a little bit here and there. But these are things that we do. And I think it's also kind of like when we're quitting drinking, you might have a good sober stretch for a while, and then you slip back into the old patterns and you drink for a little while. And you don't give credit to that sober stretch. Just because you drank again doesn't mean that that didn't help you
Yeah.
get to where you're going in that future self. And so we'll talk a little bit about that next. But like, it's the things that we've done. Just because I don't teach yoga does not mean that that 200-hour training didn't help me serve in another way. And it's clear, like you know, we both help women get through ambiguity and fears to accomplish what they want to accomplish. Like that is very similar in both of our work, because the only reason why people don't do things is because they're afraid of failure. It's so not true, because everything that I did, it took me like almost 2 years from when I really got serious that I wanted to quit drinking to my last drink. It was about 20 months. And there were many times where I looked at myself as a failure through that. But no, it was just all like the road there. So I'm wondering what you think of that.
Oh my gosh, I have so much to say. I'm like, we're so similar because I went and got my Pilates training in November. I did an entire program in Costa Rica, was there for a month, and it was incredible. And it built, again, it helps me really build confidence, like being in front of a group and teaching. Like I took so many valuable lessons from that experience.
Yeah.
And I got home and I started doing a lot of my practice sessions. And I was like, this is great. And maybe I want to do some teaching here and there occasionally, but I'm not drawn to it. It's not the thing that lights me up. It's not the thing that is like my thing. Like I don't want to be a Pilates girl on Instagram. Like none of that resonates with me. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But how would I have known if I didn't try? And the old me would have shamed myself and been like, oh my gosh, you just spent money to go get this certification. I got my sound healing certification. I got so many things in these last couple of years because I was getting to know who I am and what lights me up and what doesn't. And guess what? None of that was a waste of time, money, or energy because they were all incredible, beautiful experiences. And they all led me to what I do now. Like I have so much more confidence in expressing myself and in sharing my gifts and in teaching, right? Because I'm still teaching just in a different way. And it's like, I always say this, but every single thing that you are navigating in your journey right now, even if you're working an unaligned corporate job, they are all little stepping stones to where you are going. Because I think back, like when I tell you, I've tried everything. I did drop shipping, I did Amazon FBA, I designed websites, I did so many things. And every single thing taught me something I needed to know now: communication, relationship building. Like nothing was a waste. So,
Mhm.
all of that to say, you're on the perfect journey for you, but allow yourself to play and experiment and try new things because if you don't try, how will you know?
Okay. Listeners, I want you to hit the rewind for 10 seconds and listen to that statement again. It is so true. It also kind of ties into like when I think about quitting drinking, I'm like, I already know what it's like to drink. I already know what it's like to go on vacation and drink the whole time and come home and feel like garbage. I owe it to myself to try this alcohol free, like this experience. And maybe a vacation feels really scary to do alcohol free right now, but like you ask yourself, do I already know what it's like to go out to dinner with my husband and not drink? If the answer is no, try that. And if you end up having a drink, it's okay. Like it's not over, but now you know, like, okay, I need to try this. We have to try things.
Yes, and get curious. Like, you don't have to. I think sometimes we think that when we choose to do something, it has to become our thing, right? Like when you went and did yoga, it's like, okay, now I have to be a yoga teacher. But it's like, well, maybe it's just a part of your journey that's leading you to what you're actually meant to do. And so stop doing things for the need of an outcome or an expectation or that needing to be your new identity. Like allow yourself to just explore things for just the sake of exploring and having fun and just seeing, like getting curious with it.
Oh my gosh, 1,000 times yes. Like old me just did not think that way. I was so critical of everything that I did, needing to lead to an outcome that was like very specific. And I remember actually, you just kind of jogged my memory in this yoga teacher training. I think there was like 28 or 30 people in my 9-month class or whatever. Some of the people, when you ask, why are you doing this? Or, what are you hoping? They'd say, oh, just to kind of immerse myself in my own practice. And I remember being like, what's the point? Like,
Mhm.
why would you do that? Like, not out loud to them, but in my own mind, I wouldn't say that to somebody, but like, gosh, like that just seems so, I don't know, extravagant or over the top, or, like I just had all this like critique
Yeah.
over how they were just like, I could not imagine just doing that for myself kind of a thing, it's very interesting. And now I'm them. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I didn't want to do anything with that. That was a self-discovery like exercise for me. And I don't know, it's so fascinating. You've really opened up my mind here.
It's so fascinating. Yes, because I was the same way. I'm like, why on earth would I drop 3 grand, 4 grand to just like deepen a part of myself if I'm not going to take the certification and do something with it? And there was a time where I really did shame myself. Like when I first started my business, I did because I'm like, oh my gosh, I just spent all this money and now I don't want to do this. And then I just completely reframed it. I'm like, wait a minute. Like I'm actually learning what I don't want to do and I'm learning what I do want to do and how I want to show up and the type of leader I want to be. Like these are all experiences that you would never know if you didn't do those things. And so it's like, let yourself be a human. Like that's the
Yeah,
biggest thing. Like just let yourself explore and see what you connect with.
exactly. And like, don't be too attached to some outcome and like, what you think success looks like, because
Mhm.
success could look like I have information to decide if this is for me or not. Like,
Yes.
I wish that I would have gone into that instead of success looks like I teach 20 friggin' yoga classes a week, because let's get real, like that's a grind. So when you quit drinking or when you decided, did you already have a picture in your mind of what you wanted to become? I believe that the fastest way to become the version of you who you want to become is to live as if you're already her. But when
Mhm.
we don't quite know what that is, so I'm curious what that looked like for you.
Such a good question. Yeah, oftentimes we don't know. And I think that's why we don't step into those versions because we have no clarity. And I will say that when I knew I needed to get sober, I didn't have a vision of what I would be like or what I would look like or how I would act or any of that. But I did know that I had really big dreams. Like I've always been, I said I was an entrepreneur out of the womb because that's true. Like I always had business ideas. I always knew I wanted to work for myself, but it got really clouded when I was partying. So I would say when I made the decision to get sober, all I really knew is I want to feel healthier. I was always the girl getting sick. I was always the sick friend. So I was like, I don't want to be sick anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to start going to the gym. I want to get strong. I want to feel like I'm doing something productive and I'm healthy. So those were really the big things. And then I think the third thing was just like, I want to have deeper relationships. And I also want to be able to build the business that I want because if I keep drinking, I will never unlock my true potential. Because there were so many times when I was drinking, as I mentioned before, like drop shipping, and I started different businesses, but I was drinking and partying while trying to build the businesses. And I was always half assing it. I was never showing up the way that I was supposed to show up. And I was always complaining of like, oh, this didn't work out. Well, because my attention was still on drinking. And so all I knew is that I need to change my life because if I don't, I'll never get to where I want to go. So I had somewhat of a vision, but I didn't really get into visualization or meditation until I was sober.
We are operating at like 40 or 50% when we're drinking. When you're just like low grade or sometimes high grade, hungover all the time, you're not following through on the things that you said you were going to do. It's like that's the biggest problem because you're always too tired. Like there's always a million reasons why. And so yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, I just like these conversations always just make me think back to that woman and I'm like, wow. I just celebrate her for how far she's come and I hope everyone listening to this, even if you're not where you want to be yet, fall back in love with the journey and like celebrate all the little wins and how far you've actually come, because you probably don't give yourself enough credit. Like there's days where we can be really hard on ourselves, like, oh, we don't have the success yet, or we don't have this yet. But it's like, oh my gosh, I overcame something that I struggled with for almost 15 years of my life.
Exactly. That also means it's probably not going to resolve itself overnight. It takes time, and it takes like, doing the thing on the days you don't feel like doing it. And that's really hard.
Absolutely. And it's the thing is like it's like choose your hard, right? Like you can choose to remain at a soul-sucking job. You can choose to continue drinking and being hungover every day. You can choose to be in toxic relationships, and that's hard. I would argue to say that's way harder than choosing the soul aligned path, which is like getting healthy and okay, yeah, maybe showing up at the gym when you never did before. It's going to take, it's really going to take discipline, and it's going to take that identity shift of like, I am the woman that shows up for herself and I am consistent. And
Yeah.
there's going to be moments of having to sit with your emotions, and it might feel difficult for you, right? Sitting in that grief and that sadness and like allowing yourself to feel your emotions. All of these things could technically be hard. I don't even like using hard in my current life because I'm like, actually, life is pretty great right now. Like there's moments of discomfort and there's moments of fear and there's moments of, am I going to get through this? But I do, right? Where in the past felt hard. It felt like a constant struggle and a constant like, I have to do this, and resistance and ugh.
So much resistance. And I think also like something that when you have the clarity and you feel your best, when alcohol is out of your system, you have proven to yourself over and over again how capable you are. And so things don't feel as hard. And until you get those repetitions of, experiencing difficult things. And there's all kinds of things that I go through where I'm like, oh my gosh, if I was still drinking, there's like no way I would have been able to handle this or
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
Um, so you've been sober over 2 years.
Yes.
And
Crazy.
what's like a key thing in your identity change since, where you are today from where you were when you were drinking? What's like one thing?
Oh my gosh. The thing that just came to mind is like I have the bravery and the courage to literally do anything I want in my life. Like in when I was drinking, I always just had this like level of self-doubt and inner criticism and judgment of myself, and I never felt like I could get to where I wanted to go. And now I just have this like unmatched courage of like I can literally do anything I set my mind and my heart to, even if it takes time, right? We have to be patient with ourselves, even if it's scary, because anything that you're just starting is going to feel scary. Even if I don't know the how and the when and all the little details yet, it's going to happen because I will not give up. And I have the courage to keep showing up each and every day. Like that is the biggest identity shift.
Yeah, I think that that is true across the board. You just become so much more brave. There's no time to waste. You realize there's no time to waste. You're like, I just have to go do the thing.
That's it. And then you do it and you're like, oh, wait, that wasn't actually so bad. It was just worse in my head. And then you do it again. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so much more confident than I ever thought I could be. And it's crazy too, because like sobriety, I always thought I was confident when I was drinking because I had liquid courage, but I was actually insecure and crumbling on the inside. And when I got sober and I built true confidence, which is actually like quiet and embodied and being rooted in who you are and your values, like that to me is true confidence. It's just like, wow, oh my gosh, that's what this feels like. Not before when I was trying to prove confidence and trying to like be the loudest in the room. And no, that's not true confidence.
I could not agree more. And I feel like confidence comes when you're showing up genuinely, like
Yes.
saying yes when you mean yes, saying no when it doesn't feel good to say yes, and like all of the things around boundaries. That is confidence, because when we lack confidence, we kind of become pushovers, and it's no way to live.
No. And like, and it's also just like when you become more confident, it's like all the parts of yourself you've learned to hide or the parts that you used to feel ashamed or embarrassed of start to come online. And it's like your personality and your quirks and your goofiness, like all these things naturally start to be seen and you allow them to be witnessed. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I think of it as like you're in this cage and then all of a sudden you break free and you're liberated. and you're just like showing up as your authentic self, and it's so freeing.
It is. It feels so good and it's relieving. Like a lot of women tell me, I feel like I'm just living this double life. Like I'm this version of me to other people, but on the inside, like you were saying earlier, on the inside, I'm just like crumbling and nervous and anxiety. And it's like, yeah, that it doesn't feel good to feel one way and to like outwardly be a different version of you. And people, especially when people that we love, like they don't know that we have all these little dirty secrets and things that we're hiding from them.
Exactly. It's really, wow, it's such a powerful journey.
It can feel like we have to let go of a lot when we quit drinking, and some of it's really good and some of it's really bad, but there's so much that we gain, which we've been talking about, like confidence. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me some of the things that you had to let go of and what you gained.
Oh, I have so many things I had to let go of. Number one were my excuses. That was a big one for me. Like I constantly had an excuse of like why I couldn't go to the gym, why I couldn't build the business, why I couldn't be successful. But it was because I was just drowning in that identity of like this is who I am and nothing else that doesn't fit that identity will come to fruition. So my excuses had to go away. It was like no, I am a powerful co-creator. I can do anything I set my mind to. And if I want something bad enough, I can get it. And so that eliminated all space for excuses because if you want something, you have to set aside the time for it. And the idea of like, I don't have time is this is not a priority. And so I just realized, like, oh my gosh, I was swimming in all my own excuses. So that was a big one. The second thing was I had to let go of a lot of unaligned friendships and relationships. There were people in my life that I thought would be in my wedding someday. And I just realized when I took off the rose colored glasses and I was sober that we actually really had nothing in common. Like we had very different values. We had very different ideas of what fun was. We really couldn't have deep conversations unless we were out partying. And I just realized, wait a minute, I'm going in this direction, you're going in this direction. And if it's dragging me down and it's affecting my energy, then it can't come with me. And I like to say that because I do think you can be friends with someone who maybe isn't on the exact same path as you, and that's okay. But you at least need to share some values and you at least need to be able to be vulnerable with one another. And I no longer had room in my life for surface level anything, surface level conversations, surface level dating. Like we either have to be able to be who we are with one another or I don't have space for it in my life. And
Yeah.
so I had to let go of a lot of that weight. And that was hard because I really had to continue reminding myself like the right people, the aligned relationships, they will come once you go deeper with yourself. But I always think of this saying of like, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And it's really
Mm.
true. And I knew that if I was going to be willing to go deeper with myself, then I would also start attracting people that were going deeper within themselves as well. And that's exactly what happened.
That's so good. And that is a very real fear that we have is like, I'm going to lose friends. What if I lose my friends? And it's easy to say, sitting on this side of sobriety, well, who the F cares? Because they weren't your friends anyway. Like, but I also remember feeling that way and thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose so many friends. And I haven't lost a friend that I miss. Let's put it that way.
That's the perfect way to put it. Like, yes, we had fun together. Yes, we shared amazing experiences at a certain point in time. And I'll always hold them near and dear to my heart, but I don't miss anything else about it because my life has changed in so many infinite ways. And I think it's like you have to like send love and then allow yourself to move on and also like allow yourself to grieve, right? Like I did go through a process where I cried and it was painful and I was so sad to lose them. But then you end up meeting people and you're like, oh, this is what a true friendship is. And this is what it feels like to be able to be myself.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I also think the reality is that the ones that we care the most or the ones we're worried about the most losing, they're not the ones that we're going to lose.
No.
Like they're the ones who love you and they're there for you.
And the right people will always be there. Like the people that are meant to be in your life will support you no matter what you choose in your own life.
Oh, this was so good. So when did you decide to share your sobriety journey publicly? Like, what were some of the positives and negatives of doing that for you?
Oh my gosh. So I actually, funny enough, I had started a business before getting into the coaching world. It was a nootropic mushroom gummy brand for festivals and raves. Because in a past life, I was a huge raver, EDM girl, like loved that music, still do, but not in that sense. And so I was always at festivals and I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder why there's not like something for sober people going to festivals. Like I want something that I can take that keeps me energized, that keeps me, wanting to dance and be in the energy of the festival without doing substances or drinking. And so I created products that were like nootropic gummies. So like lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps. And so they help with like your cognitive function, and they worked and they were great. And so I started to promote them. I had like shuffle dancers promoting them. And I remember I just one day was like, I'm going to share my sobriety journey, because I had shared it in like carousels and I had shared it online, but I hadn't said it to the camera. And that for me was a huge edge. Like I remember being so terrified of being seen. And it was in that moment I knew, okay, this is going to change something with me and I have to share my story. And I'm terrified, but I'm going to do it anyways. So one day I just did a face to camera video, and I still have that video because I was so stiff and I was so scared, and I just didn't know what I was doing, but I did it anyways. And I just shared my journey and why I created my brand. And I remember posting it, and it got the most engagement out of any of my videos. And all my friends were so supportive, and people were like, oh my gosh. And it was after that, I was like, I'm going to start doing face to camera videos. And I just kept on going, and it was awkward. And I made a fool of myself so many times, and I let it be cringe, and I just kept going because now it's my favorite thing to do. Like I can film a video in 5 minutes and it's so natural because I allowed myself to start messy and imperfect. And one day it's like riding a bike. So I started sharing my sobriety journey, and then it liberated a lot of that shame that I was carrying. And I also gave other people that feeling of like, wow, I'm not alone on my journey. And that's what then led me into the coaching world and launching my podcast. And now what I do today, it's like all of it was an incremental step to getting where I am. And little by little, you feel more comfortable sharing parts of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, shame dies when our stories are told.
Yeah,
I fully believe that. And it's not just helpful for others, it's helpful for us. It reinforces the mindset of, what we're doing here.
absolutely. It's so powerful. Like when you share your voice and your story, you give others permission to then share theirs. And it's a
Mhm.
collective thing. It's like it helps you liberate that shame. And it also helps other people be like, wow, I also went through this. And I now have the confidence and the courage to share my story. And it's just such a powerful ripple effect.
It really is. It really is. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to know more about your work as an EFT practitioner. What is it? How did you find this therapeutic method? How has it played a role in your own success? How does it support your work in her journey home? I have so many questions.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love this. So fun. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it dates back all the way to ancient Chinese medicine. And for those of you that are new to EFT, I like to get into the visual. So it's essentially acupuncture, but without the needles. And it's a blend of cognitive and somatic therapy. So, cognitive thoughts and your brain, somatic body, right? So, we're tapping on the acupressure points, which are also known as the meridians. And it's helping you to stimulate the energy in your body to move emotions and feelings through the body. So, I like to make it very clear it's not about getting rid of emotions, right? Oftentimes people think like, oh, I just need to regulate my nervous system and feel good. It's not about feeling good all the time. It's about getting really good at feeling. And so EFT gives you a tool to be able to expand your capacity to hold and feel those deeper emotions. So you can feel the sadness and the grief, but then you also feel the happiness and the abundance and the joy on such a deeper level. And so EFT brings you back into your body, and it helps you to bring your emotions, your fears, your anxieties down so that you know that you can actually handle what's happening in your life and you feel much more calm and collected versus if you didn't tap. So essentially what's going on is when you're tapping on the meridian points, you're sending a signal to the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for processing fear and stress. So when
Mm.
you're saying the fears or the thoughts out loud and you're tapping on your meridian points, it's letting your amygdala know I am safe. And so what I love about EFT, it's like such a cool tool to have in your back pocket for anytime, anywhere. I've tapped in the back of an Uber on the way to an airport. I've tapped at the airport, right? When I'm feeling stressed. Whereas like you can't really do that with like breath work or other things that are a little bit more intense and you need to have like a quiet space. EFT you can do anywhere.
How has this played a role in your own success? Like, how does it support her journey home?
Oh my gosh, on so many different levels. So prior to EFT, as I mentioned earlier, I was terrified of being seen. I would shut down and I would freeze when I would go to film videos or I would go to talk about my story. And EFT really helped me to release, I don't want to say release the fears, but it helps me build capacity to take action with the fears. So like I would know, okay, I feel the fear, but I'm going to take action anyway. And so I started to come back into my body. I started to regulate my nervous system and I started to feel like, oh, wow, I can do this. And so I started taking more action, more aligned action that then led me to building so much more confidence in my voice, in sharing my story, in launching my podcast. And it was like little by little, because I had this tool in my back pocket, I was able to show my body it's safe. Because
Yeah.
oftentimes, if we don't feel safe, our nervous system quite literally thinks that a lion is chasing us, right? Like being seen and filming a face to camera video is our nervous system's, we're getting chased by a lion. It's the same thing to our nervous system. It doesn't know the difference. And so when you can teach and train your body of actually, my voice is safe to be heard and you're tapping while you're repeating this, right? Like it is safe to be heard. It is safe to be seen. It is safe to express myself and you're
Mhm.
actually tapping through this, you're training your nervous system that, oh, wait, it's okay. You can do this. And so little by little, I just continued doing things that really stretched me. And it was like, oh, if this scares me, I need to do it because I know that's my growth edge. And so that's what led me to where I am.
I want feeling afraid to be like that green light. Like,
Yes.
oh, this actually means I have to do it, not step away or, keep making excuses to not do it. There should be a mix of fear and excitement, I think, because you're afraid of the ambiguity, but you're excited at the possibilities. And that's where quitting drinking really is for so many of us. It's like we're really afraid because we don't know what's going to happen. But the possibility of living like, these other women who are sober or whatever, like that seems really appealing. And I'm excited about that.
Exactly. And we use so much of the same language because you said a green light. And I always say that, like, stop looking at fear as a stop sign. It's a green light because whatever you're desiring is on the other side of that fear. And as humans, it's normal to have fear. So, like, acknowledge the fear and then take the action anyway because you will grow from it.
Exactly. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. So back to our shame dies when our stories are told. I love that your podcast is rooted in storytelling tradition. So where does your love for storytelling come from? And why did you decide to start a podcast?
Oh my goodness. My love for storytelling honestly came at a very young age. I was always such a big speaker and storyteller until I learned to quiet my voice. Like I always had so much to say. I was a little girl that was always told like to be quiet in class and always like the too loud and that was just me. So that started very young. And then about 2 years ago, I started a podcast with a friend. And we actually had a podcast all about sober curiosity because her and I were both sober. And we did the podcast and we both like fell in love with it. But I remember one day I was sitting in my apartment and I had this like full body, it was the craziest feeling ever because I heard my higher self be like, Sophia, you need to start your own podcast like immediately. And I had been doing coaching and I had been doing a lot of this self-discovery work. And so I had so many of these stories to talk about and to share. And with our podcast, it was amazing, but we were kind of staying more, I don't want to say surface level, but kind of like our own shared experiences. But there was so much more that I wanted to talk about. And I just remember in that moment, like full body chills and knowing like I have to go off on my own. And of course, that was nerve wracking and I was scared to bring it up to her, but I had to do what I was being called to do. So I had the conversation, and 2 weeks later, her journey home was born. And I remember during a meditation, I had the download of the name because I'm like, oh, this is a really, I just know immediately I have to start this podcast, but I want it to be something really special to me. And I remember her journey home landing and I started crying and I was like, that's it. And actually talking about this now, there was another moment in time, even before I started a podcast with a friend. I had just gotten out of that relationship. I hadn't gotten sober yet, but I was in Mexico traveling because that was one of my ways of escaping. And I was on the bus from Mexico City to San Miguel de Allende, which is like 2 hours north. And my head was against the glass. And I remember in that moment, I was so heartbroken. And there was a voice that was like, you should start a podcast and share your experience. And so podcasting has always been like this thread throughout my whole life of like, I just need to share my voice in a deeper way. And I never took action then because I hadn't gotten sober. And again, I had so many excuses of like, you're not an expert and like, who would listen to you? And like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. But now that I'm doing this podcast and now that I'm helping other women with podcasts, it's like, duh. It was always right in front of me. But of course, I went off and did all these other certifications and I didn't trust this voice because it comes so naturally to me that I was like, this can't be the thing. But here we are.
And here we are. I love it so much. I think something that really stood out to me when you were saying that is like, and 2 weeks later, it was born. Her journey home was born. And I'm like, because you stepped through the fear and you just did the thing. Like, I'm so like that, where I'm just like, you get that idea and you instantly know, like, I have to run with this and I can't look back and nothing's going to stop me from doing this. And 2 weeks later, it's here.
Yeah. And honestly, like for anyone listening, it's really important that when you do have an idea, you act on it as quickly as you can, because otherwise, not only does that excitement kind of start to fade, but if you don't have the courage to take action, I just filmed a video on this, someone else will. And you're going to look back in a couple of years and be like, oh my gosh, they took my idea. I should have just done this. So it's like, if you have an idea that's like burning a hole in your heart, like go do it.
Yes. And the longer you wait, the more self-doubt creeps in and all the not to do it, they're going to overpower the real reason to do it. And it's like, you just got to go. I'm a gut thinker, obviously, as a manifesting generator. If that initial voice is, then do it. Go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think so many women find it difficult to find their voice?
We kind of touched on this earlier, but there's two things. There's childhood, right? Maybe you were told you were too much. Maybe you were shamed when you tried to be vulnerable and express yourself. Maybe you had all of these big ideas and these big emotions and you were told to keep quiet, right? Like that was me. I grew up thinking I would throw these crazy temper tantrums and I was always put in timeout for them. My parents didn't know any better. They're amazing people, but they didn't know. And in school, you're told to be quiet and to raise your hand and all these things. So childhood is a big, big, big piece. The second one, which is equally as big, is culturally, as women, we are told to be polite. We are told to be quiet. We are told to not take up too much space. And so little by little, we start to shrink ourselves into these palatable, watered down versions of ourselves that stay small. And so with the two together, it's very normal that many of us are terrified to speak up and to share our truth because we've probably gotten in trouble. We've probably been shamed. We've probably been yelled at or, publicly humiliated for sharing something that we wanted to share. And I have so many instances in my life where I'm like, oh, no wonder why it is terrifying to be seen and to share and to speak up. But the best thing that you end up doing for yourself is liberating your voice. And I personally have just found that podcasting is so deep and incredible because it's long form content. And so like 90-second reels are great, all of that is fine. But when you sit down and you give your voice a home and you give yourself a space for an hour, 2 hours where you are just like allowing your thoughts to come through, you build such an unshakable level of self-trust and conviction in yourself, in your voice, in your unique perspectives. And it has changed every area of my life.
I could not relate more. I'm just thinking about like specifically school and even college, like not wanting to raise my hand and answer the question because, like, oh my God, I don't want the other kids in class to think that I'm stupid or to think that I don't, what if I'm wrong? And I don't want to answer this question where it is unbelievable how much people actually want to hear what you have to say. And the people who don't want to don't have to listen. And that's the beauty of podcasting or just in general social media and being able to follow somebody who resonates with you. People are going to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And it's really powerful. And it feels good to be at a point where, like, I could give a crap if somebody doesn't agree with me or doesn't like what I'm saying, then they don't have to listen. What's important is the women who do resonate with what I'm saying feel supported and loved and less alone. Like, that's what I care about. So,
That's the biggest thing.
this has been so much fun. And I know that we're running out of time. And I have a couple more questions, so I'm hoping we can squeak them in because this is going to close the loop on everything. I want to know, how did you find your own voice? How do you nurture it? And then what is a tip or something that the women listening can take and practice this week?
Absolutely. Love this so much. I'm very action oriented as well. I found my own voice by first and foremost using it, right? So for me, what that looked like is I didn't jump straight into podcasting because that would have sent my nervous system into tons of dysregulation. I started looking for communities that resonated with me. And I want every woman to hear this because community is everything. And when you find communities of women that are on similar journeys, maybe that are sober or that want to get sober, or women that want to go into the deeper inner work, you will feel more called to share because you know you're in a safer space. And so that was the first thing I did besides talk to, a therapist or a safe friend. I got into community. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start being vulnerable here because I know these women will get it. They'll understand. And so I started raising my hand and I allowed myself to be seen and witnessed by more than one person. And that was so powerful because people will literally message you and be like, oh my gosh, thank you for being vulnerable. Now I feel confident to share my story. Thank you. Like that really helps me feel less alone. Like I didn't know anyone else went through that. And you start to realize the power your voice holds. So I would say community was the first thing. And then I started doing Instagram stories because they only last 24 hours. So it was like, okay, I can be a little more vulnerable and then it will go away. And then I built confidence there. Then I started doing face to camera videos. Then I would go live. Then I launched my podcast. So it was this beautiful gradual way of coming back to my voice and really learning to trust myself. The other piece of it is drowning out the outside noise. We are constantly filled with distractions and we have social media, we have other coaches, we have all the people that are telling us what we should be doing. And I really need you to lean into what you feel called to do. Because when you show up and you are following the joy and you're following what lights you up, you will show up with a conviction and an energy that can be felt. And it's not like this forceful, I need to do this because this person told me this. No, you're leaning into what lights you up and your natural gifts will come online and your authentic self-expression will come online. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like I feel it. So my biggest thing for you today to do after this is first and foremost, if you are not a part of any community, look for a community that you feel deeply seen and safe with. And I urge you to stretch yourself. And in the next call that you have with those people, be the person to share. Raise your hand. Say something you never have before, maybe. Like share a story that is a little bit of a stretch, but you're like, I'm ready to share this. I want someone else to hear this. And give yourself that space. Like that is what I would say. And then the second thing is take some time for yourself. Like carve out 10 minutes. If you can take 30 minutes to an hour, put your phone on silent, maybe go on a walk outside or sit and light a candle and drink your favorite cup of tea and just hear what comes through. Because oftentimes when we release the distraction and all the outside noise, that is when the most beautiful inspiration, ideas, creative things drop in. And we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize this. But because we're glued to our phones and we're constantly searching for something outside of ourselves, we can't even hear our own inner voice. Those two things will actually change a lot.
Yes, yes. One of my favorite things to do is to go for a walk without my phone.
Yes. Oh,
It's
so good.
it's amazing. Oh, thank you so much. I wish that we could continue talking,
Me
but
too.
we also have other things that we're responsible for. So thank you so much. And you can be found at Sophia Graniela. We'll link it in the show notes. And I'm so glad that you are here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I love these conversations, and I hope the women listening got so much out of it.
Absolutely. If this episode landed for you, it would mean a lot if you left a review or take a quick screenshot of it and share it on social media. That's how this show reaches more women who are ready to stop living in the drinking loop and start leading themselves with confidence again. I'm on a mission to change the way high-achieving women think about alcohol because you don't need more willpower or more rules around your drinking. You need real support, real tools, and the truth about what's actually possible for you. So keep showing up for yourself, keep telling the truth about what you want. And remember, the life you want isn't found in a glass or a bottle of wine. It's built in the decisions that you can stand behind, the ones that you feel really good about. My DMs are always open, and I can't wait to get to know you better. I will see you next week in the next episode.